Maybe walk us through, before we get started with questions, walk us through what Sunday night meant to you personally about getting to award a scholarship to one, if you don't mind me saying, one of your favorite student athletes that you've had the pleasure of working with.
Yeah, before I get into that, because I do want that to be the main story, I do want to put some kind of housekeeping notes behind us, roster wise. I think it's kind of floated out there now, and obviously I wanted to address this before it did, but obviously we've been paused here. But Montrell Pena is not with us. He's opted out. Personal decision that we talked about. Um, I'm still in contact with him, but he needed to step away from college right now to get things in order, and hopefully we can, once he does, get a knee procedure here. It's not scheduled yet, but he's also going to be done for the year. Farron Flavors is going to get reevaluated tomorrow, I believe. I think he's going to get his cast off his hand and then have an evaluation with our team, our medical team, and hopefully he can return to practice when we get back. So that's just kind of some roster updates for everybody. Our hope after this pause, we'll know more probably tonight or first thing tomorrow morning when we can return to practice. Fingers are crossed that we can return to practice sometime in the next couple of days. And if we do so, the plan would be to try to get back on the court for our next game versus Baylor. So I'll take any questions on that before we talk about D, because I don't want to go back on that. So anybody had anything specific on any of that, just jump on in there.
Jacob, did you want to go ahead with that?
Yeah, sure. I'll take something. Mike, for you, you guys have had so much momentum after the Kansas game, and we're really kind of clicking. How frustrating was this shutdown?
Yeah, really frustrating. But it's also the reality, right? There was no way we were getting through the season without it. Like that, I don't think anybody will or has to this point. I don't know how many teams haven't been paused or stopped practice at least. So it's kind of something you expect. You just, there's not a good time, right? If you're on a losing streak, you probably wonder if the guys kind of shut things down. But that you're playing well and have won 3 out of 4 and could have easily won the last 4 games. You hope that the guys don't lose the energy and excitement they've had. So we've just been in touch with them. We haven't been able to be around them. Our locker room is shuttered, has been for about a week. And, we're just trying to monitor, because obviously the health of these kids and making sure that they feel as good as possible, that we will continue is most important. So not excited. Obviously, Bedlam, everybody was excited to have an opportunity to play that game. But we also know the seriousness of the virus, that is still out there. It's raging on, whether we want it to or not. And so we also have to be cognizant that that's kind of making all the decisions for us. The virus is running our lives, truly, and that we're going to try to adapt and adjust accordingly as we get through the rest of the year.
You kind of touched on it. How worried are you, though, that this could linger, not necessarily health-wise, but you get everyone back on the court and maybe there's rust, there's something goes wrong. Is there worries of that?
Yeah, I've talked to other coaches around the country who've experienced this, and there's been mixed. There's been a mix of responses from it, and so you just hope that the kids are still excited to play, understanding, because we've talked about there's going to be disruptions. How do you handle it? How do you keep yourself mentally engaged in what we're trying to do on the court, but also taking care of your body, continuing to keep your conditioning up somehow, some way. They are allowed to come in the gym individually, get on. We got a treadmill in there. We've got some dumbbells in there. We got a plan. We try to get on Zoom with them to talk them through some things. So there's a lot of challenges, but we're dealing with the same thing all 330 other teams in the country are dealing with. So we're not going to complain. We'll be excited about the chance that we get to get back out there and our chance to continue to have an impact on these kids' lives.
So are they getting there individually, and I guess they're shooting and doing things like that? Or are they kind of like you got like a spreadsheet going with the schedule for them? Or what?
Yeah, so we try to put a little bit of a template together, kind of positionally what guys should be doing, and they know, it's not like guys don't know what they should be working on, but having some organization to it certainly helps, and obviously what helped us this past week is we weren't in school, and the other two teams that use our facility were also out of town. So wrestling was gone, women's basketball was on the road. And so we didn't have to worry about kind of crossing paths with any other athletes and putting them in danger. Hopefully we come out of this here in the next day or so and get back on the court as a team and move forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Aaron, did you have a question on this issue? Go ahead if you'd like, if you do.
Yeah, Mike, you referenced the potential difficulty, as far back as October, I think, when we had you on one of these things, and you guys are, I know, bracing for it. Might not make it any easier to deal with it when it happens. Is the frustration have been what you thought? Did you figure it would be this kind of frustrating type of up and down situation, or has it surprised you in the moment, the difficulty of dealing with playing basketball through a pandemic?
Yeah, it's hard to know how to prepare for it mentally, really, even for a coach. So I don't even know what the kids experience. And it happens suddenly, right? It's not like you kind of see it coming. It just happens. I mean, and then all of a sudden it's go home. It's kind of like what we experienced the way the tournament ended last year in some ways. So from a coaching standpoint, we've got a little bit of experience with it. But even then, we just didn't know a whole lot. At least there's optimism that there is something on the other side, right? And so, as it relates to bracing for it, I think you brace for it every day, to be honest.
Yeah.
We're testing so often, and it's like the thing you have the most anxiety about every day is what the results will look like when they come back. I'll say this, the best thing that from our perspective is no one in our program has been severely sickened, hospitalized, put in any kind of real danger because of this. So we're thankful for that. We're appreciative of the parents of the kids in our program, that they've been very understanding that we are treating this seriously, and we're trying to do everything we can to mitigate the risk that their children are taking. And our kids seem excited to want to get back. We had a Zoom, they were on that Zoom with D on Sunday, and they all were excited for him, but also looking forward to the chance to get back and do something that they really are excited about doing, which is playing a game that they've loved for all their lives.
Thanks.
Marshall, Scott, go for it, Marshall.
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if it was just for me, but you cut out a little bit whenever you're running down the injury list. You said somebody's out for the year with a knee. Who is that?
So Chris Harris had surgery,
Okay.
and Donovan Williams is going to have surgery. We don't have, it's not scheduled yet, but we're working on getting that scheduled. He had an MRI done last Thursday. We got the results back on Friday. And obviously, so we're dealing with a little bit of an injury issue here as well.
Both of those guys have, I guess, had a history now with their knees. Does that make it any more difficult to kind of break that news with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. To tell them, it's always difficult to tell them they can't play, right? But at the same time, I think for them, just making sure that they feel comfortable that we're going to try to get them back as healthy as possible. And they're both really good kids. They do things the right way. They stay out of trouble. They got great attitudes, and so I'm confident that long term, maybe this is something that benefits us. You talk about getting old. It's not the ideal way to do that, but you got a couple guys that potentially could be around for a little bit longer than maybe they expected, or maybe the families expected. And that certainly is something that can be beneficial, right? 2-3 years down the line, you got some guys who've been in the program who know what the expectations are, who can really, really help you.
Is it the same knee with each of them, or is it the opposite?
Both of them, it's the same knee. Yep.
Okay. And then as far as COVID is concerned, it came out that it was just one positive test. Are you expecting that impact, if you guys do get back Saturday, to be minimal, I guess, in terms of guys out because of it?
I don't know how to answer that, just because, kind of what I was talking about earlier with Jacob and Garrett. I don't know what the impact of not having been able to practice is yet, and so the virus is one thing, but not being in your normal routine, even if you're playing, could maybe have the effect. So I don't know how many guys will have available, but I also don't know the guys that are available, what they're. It's hard. That's a hard. I'm not sure I can give you a good answer today. I probably could if I've seen us practice, but I haven't. I don't. It's hard. I can't really give you a good one on that one.
Gotcha. As far as contact tracing goes, a lot of your guys are obviously roommates with each other. If one guy gets it, is his roommate automatically out, or how does that work? Do they just try and stay away from each other?
Pretty much, yeah. And so our guys, we actually we only have 2 guys to a room, which helps in some ways. But we got a pretty small team too, and guys are pretty close to one another. So, you know, the truth is they spend a lot of time together, and so we're not talking about, like, for instance, in a football scenario where maybe you have a group of 6 guys who don't really spend time with another group of 10 or 12 guys, and you could find a way around that. But the nature of our game, right, it's not as position specific either, right? We don't have meetings just with 2 guys or one, because the game, you play both sides of the ball. So if we need to watch something defensively, everybody needs to know what the hell's going on. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So contact tracing is a little bit more challenging in a basketball perspective than it is maybe some of the other sports.
And then with Montrell, you mentioned you still talk to him. It's obviously been a strange deal from the outside. Is there a chance ever that he returns to the program after some time away, or how does that look?
Yeah, I mean, that's on the table. Again, I want the kid to be here. I want to help him more than I want him to be a part of our program. And so that's our priority. As it stands now, it's probably, I would say it's 50-50. And obviously, depending on how things go over the next month or 2, we'll make a big determination on whether he returns beyond this semester.
All right, appreciate it, Mike.
TJ, did you have a question on this matter?
Yeah, Stephen had mentioned, Coach, that this would be our last chance to talk to you before Baylor. So maybe how much more difficult does that matchup become now that you've missed 2 games and multiple days of practice?
I don't know how much more difficult it can become. I watched them play last night, and they were lights out. I mean, they're really good. I mean, there's no way around that. I think I'm going to start trying to find a way to pick us to win the league, because I picked the best team to win the league like the last 4 years, and I've been right. And so until they start allowing me to vote for our own team, I think I'm going to not vote anymore, because it seems like that team just gets better as the year goes along and tries to prove me right. But no, Scott Drew's done an unbelievable job. They got a tremendous team. Got a bunch of guys who had success. They were close to winning the league, and I'm sure that left a bad taste in their mouth. That having Kansas at home last year with a chance to separate played into how they played last night and how they've started the season. But there's no doubt that's going to pose a great challenge, and probably one that's more complicated, right, by us not having the opportunity to really practice for a while. But our guys will be ready. I think we'll be ready to compete. How well we'll play is anyone's guess, but I feel good that our guys will be excited about the opportunity to play against what is certainly one of the premier teams in all college basketball.
Yeah, and you kind of hit on it there. Is there a way to spin this positively, like hey man, at least we got some rest going into this game, or is this just simply that's the hand we've been dealt and you just got to do what you can with it?
Yeah, I don't know about spin. I mean, you just got to watch the film. They're really good. I mean, if you can't get ready to play, they're going to kick your tail. I mean, so it's been very fluid. So they're undefeated in the league. I think they're the only team in the league undefeated at this point, actually. So they've dominated the competition pretty much. I think the Tech game was the only game that was relatively close throughout. Even last night's game ended close, but they controlled the game. I mean, from start to finish. So it wasn't a fluke. They're really good. And so our job as a staff is to put a game plan together. Our kids' job is to take that game plan, go play as hard as they can. And, see how we stack up. This is what you sign up for when you come to the Big 12. You're going to play the best competition in America for 3 months. once league play starts, and Saturday will be no different.
Thanks, Coach.
Jacob, did you have a follow-up on this before we switch gears over to D?
Yeah, I got a kind of a Baylor follow-up a little bit. You got Cade versus Jared Butler, obviously, when people look on that on paper. How rare is it to have two player of the year candidates going against each other?
I don't know. I don't give those things much thought, only because if that's the case, I don't like our chances. Not that I don't like Cade more than I like Jared Butler. They got a lot of really good players over there. So if we make this just about him, Davion Mitchell reminds me of Javon Carter, and I probably had as much respect for Javon Carter as any player I ever coached against, and I coached against him at Stephen F. and then I think 4 times here. And he's also better offensively. Davion Mitchell is. And so then you got who I think may be as good as Davion Mitchell is defensively. I think Mark Vital is the best defensive player in the country. And I only give him the edge because he can shut down your point guard and he can shut down your 5-man.
Mm-hmm.
And he can literally guard anybody on any roster in the country. And I'm sure Scott Drew will feel like he doesn't have to send a bunch of help to him. Then they have another guy who's emerging as a kind of a role player, and Jonathan, Everyday John, who may be the hardest playing player I've ever watched. And that's on a team with 2 of the best defensive players in the country. So we can't make this about an individual matchup. I know the headline and I understand why, but our team's got to be ready to compete against their team. They got a lot of really good players, and they got winners. Maceo Teague is a tremendous offensive player, great size, can shoot it. Flagler's shown that he can come in and give them great minutes. So they got a really good team. There's a reason that they're one of the favorite teams to win it all.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Let's get back to D. Mitchell, Coach. Now that we've touched on Baylor, tell me about why this was so special for you on Sunday night.
Well, I mean, to understand where it started, right? I'm gonna guess it was February of it was sometime in the fall of 2018 that he walked into my office wanting to walk on to our program. And at the time, I didn't think we had an opportunity for him, but he didn't complain. He asked if there's any way he could stay in touch. And then obviously we know what happens in the spring of that year. We get rid of a few guys and the opportunity presents itself. And he's clearly the best guy out there and he makes the team. So to see it come all the way around to where I'm going to him and asking him to be a scholarship part of our team and to understand the sacrifice he made in the fall just to be a part of the program. It's quite literally one of the 5 most gratifying moments of my life. And I'm a parent, I'm a husband. There's been a lot of cool things that's happened for me. And this one is, I've won a lot of basketball games. I've not felt good about anything in basketball the way I felt about being able to and I didn't give him anything. I want to correct. He earned this. And I was thankful to be part of the process and helping him receive that reward.
Let's go to a question. Jacob, do you have one? Go for it.
Mike, what have you seen D go through the last 6 months or so, or maybe even longer if he's been going through this with the pandemic? What have you seen him kind of deal with and how he's handled it?
I've said this before. I've coached some really good young men. I've coached a lot better players than D. Mitchell. I've got one son, and of all the players that I've been around, if I wanted my son, if I had to pick one for him to emulate, it would be D. Mitchell. And I mean that with every fiber of my being, because this basketball thing it's got a shelf life, but what D. Mitchell has lasts forever. And he's got resilience, perseverance, great attitude, unbelievable work ethic, respectful. And so everything that he's getting now, all the attention is well earned and hard earned and well deserved. And I think he's a great example of what life is really about. He's a guy who young kids should look at and say, hey, don't let your circumstances dictate how you go about your everyday life, because you never know. And you never know when an opportunity presents itself. And I don't know if he would say he's been through a lot. Everybody's been through a lot. I would say the way he's handled going through this is what's been most impressive. He shows up every day. When I come in here at 6 a.m, I'm pretty certain that him and Dallas Cameron are going to be in the gym. I'm pretty certain they're going to be in there. He's going to be in the weight room, and then he's going to go to class if we're in semester, or he's going to go to work. And then if he can come to practice, he's going to come to practice. He's not going to complain about anything, whether I ask him to be the other team's best player, or I ask him to get water, or to make free throws in practice. He does exactly what we ask. And so a long answer to probably a simple question. Just a great dude, great kid. And I'm thankful that I can be a part of his journey with him.
I think an easy question too is, how does he do that? How does a kid I don't want to say survive maybe, but maybe that's the right term. He doesn't have any downtime. How does he do that?
I think just a lot of it talks to his mental capacity, his mental makeup, right? He's not going to allow any kind of, I don't want to say distraction, any kind of setback or tough outcome or whatever dictate how he goes about his next day. What he knows he's in control of is how he approaches life, how hard he works, and he lets everything else take care of itself. And it's a great example to other young people. Like, we get so caught up in our emotion, how we feel about what's happening, and we forget there's some of the stuff that we control. And if we take advantage of the things we talk about with our team, control the controllables. D is a master of controlling the controllables. And he shows up and he works hard, and he's a tremendous teammate. He's very coachable. And there's not a secret that when he's played for us, our team has also had success.
Mm-hmm.
He got in his real first game kind of on a whim. Ice got hurt late in that game against Tech when we were already down man, and he goes in, and I remember the play in the timeout telling Lindy to come off the screen, and if they leave D, I told him, I said, if you go in this game, you got to shoot the ball if you're open. He makes a three to help us in the game in overtime. Last year at Houston, literally didn't find out he was going to play, let alone start, until about 3 hours before the game in the team film session. And went out there, and he wasn't the MVP of the game, but he was a very vital part of us having success. So just being willing to do whatever it takes to put yourself in position to have the outcome you want, and letting everything else take care of itself.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Next question is from Marshall Scott. Go ahead, Marshall.
Yeah, Mike, how did the idea to go to Walmart to do that, how did that kind of come to be?
I got a great staff here. They're always thinking of ways to put our best foot forward. And this wasn't about publicity. I mean, we're not going to shy away from it. It helps certainly the kid, our program, to see the story. But I think this is a story people should see. They should know about. But we just kind of talked about, once we decided we were going to put him on scholarship, what would be a cool way to kind of, honor him. The original thought was to have the team go to Walmart and be there with him during the shift, and maybe have the players more involved. And then obviously once this the pandemic, like I said, kind of is dictating how things happen a little bit more than we want. So it was a little bit more, probably less involved team wise, but it was a great gesture. And I was glad that thankful to the managerial staff at Walmart for allowing us to come in and do that. And they did a great job of kind of just keeping it under wraps, because he had no idea. And so it's pretty cool to see his just raw reaction to it.
He said that his folks found out before he did. Kind of what was that conversation like with them?
Yeah, so I, like all these kids, I know Dee's mom, had conversations with her, and I've got unbelievable respect for these parents who trust their kids' lives in my hands. And so I didn't want her to be caught off guard and start getting calls and freak out. So I talked to her on Friday and let her know what would be happening. Also talked to his high school coach to kind of give him a heads up, because those have been the people really supporting him through all this. And so she was aware, and I was glad that she was able to be a part of it as well. It's pretty cool.
And then your juniors, your sophomores, they know how hard he works. They know all that stuff. Do your newcomers who haven't been able to be around him as much because he's at work or because he's doing this, do they kind of appreciate just how hard of a worker he is?
I think so, because we tell them. We don't leave any. We try not to assume that they get anything. And so when after I had the conversation with D in the fall, and I think it was maybe one of his first few days back, I told our team what he was doing. And I told them at the time, anybody who thinks that they're going to play basketball and be more successful than D Mitchell is kidding themselves. K's going to make a lot of money playing basketball. Ice probably will too. We got a few guys that'll play and make money. No one's going to be more successful than D Mitchell because he gets it. They can all be as successful if they embrace his attitude to things, his approach to things. But he is a walking, talking, breathing example of what this whole thing is supposed to be about. Take advantage of the opportunities in front of you. Don't complain when things don't go your way. Understand that, you have control. You don't have total control, but you have more control over things than you think. And a lot of it just has to do with how you approach things from a mental aspect. And so we don't pass up an opportunity to tell them the sacrifices that he's making. The kid also is doing tremendous in the classroom with all that and spending time at the gym. So I try to make sure that they know it's hard for me to find excuses for other guys not getting in the gym or not doing extra in the weight room when I've got a guy literally working 40 hours a week to help take care of the bills and still giving his all to our team.
Appreciate it, Mike.
TJ Eckert has a question. Go ahead, TJ.
Yeah, Coach, you kind of just hit on it right there, but D was pretty humble and wouldn't really go into too much detail. But can you just talk about how difficult what he's doing is? I mean, the dude has no off time. Seems like when he gets home after closing at Walmart, he doesn't have much time until he wakes back up and does it all over again.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I wanted, when he came and talked to me, I wanted him to continue to be a part of our program because I know how much he loves the game of basketball. I wasn't sure how he could do it. I don't know if I could have done it. And I felt like I had a pretty strong work ethic. But think about it. I mean, if you're working 40 hours a week, it's not like he's sitting at a desk, like just trying to figure out numbers. I mean, he's on his feet, right? He's stocking shelves. He's doing whatever they ask. And then to have the energy, the will, the desire to not just come to practice, right? He's also spending as much time outside of practice in the gym as possible. And he's also he took 19 hours of class last semester. It's almost like, man, how, I think I took 16 hours one semester and I felt like my brain was going to fall outside of my head. I didn't have a job and playing basketball was like an outlet for me. And I only did that a couple hours a day. So it's really commendable. I mean, it goes to show you that people can do almost anything they put their minds to if they don't think about how hard it is, because it's certainly challenging, but he doesn't focus on the challenge. He focuses on the opportunity.
Thanks, Coach.
We probably have time for one more follow-up if anybody has one. All right. Well, we really appreciate you joining us today, Coach. Appreciate your time, and we look forward to the game on Saturday.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.
Right.